So it was announced the other day that there's going to be a Rugrats live action film with Jason Moore, the director of Pitch Perfect, is on board to direct, and the script was co-written by Mikey Day and Streeter Seidel. I don't know how I feel about this, and I understand I said that about the Barbie film as well, but I really don't know how I feel about this.
Like I like Pitch Perfect, and I even kind of like the sequel, but I hate this gets overused, but this is so unnecessary. And it's supposed to be like live action, except the babies are going to be CGI. That sounds like freaking nightmare fuel, man.
Absolutely. I mean, the CG reboot was like freaky enough, and like I love Mikey Day and Streeter Seidel. On like the work they've done on SNL has been some of like the best sketches that have come out of there. But then I also recently found out they wrote that Home Alone reboot, which I haven't seen, but I heard horrible things about.
Oh no.
Yeah, they wrote Home Sweet Home Alone.
Oh, this is going to be bad. This is going to be really bad.
Yeah.
Ugh.
I mean, at least was I mean, Corey, like you said, he said kind of the same thing with Barbie, but at least Barbie had like a ton of talent involved.
Yeah. Yeah, this does not have Greta Gerwig attached.
No. Although to be fair, I don't think I'd watch it even if Greta Gerwig was directing.
I mean, maybe the babies will start singing and dancing a cappella. Like, I don't know how you dance a cappella, like, but they'll find a way.
The movie just starts, they all look like the baby from Ally McBeal. Like,
Oh,
God, this is awful.
You know when that trailer drops, someone's gonna like superimpose those babies like doing
Oh,
something and her just
absolutely.
staring at it in complete.
I
Paramount learned nothing from Sonic.
Absolutely not.
And speaking of learning nothing, do you want to get started?
Let's do this thing.
All right, Treehouse that horror by hitting that intro. Two friends named Corey and Steve like talking about films and TV. They thought, hey, what if this was a show? That's how we got here, now you know. Wait, what's the name? That sounds terrible, go on. That sounds terrible, go on. We hope you stick around and have some fun right after our intro song. That sounds terrible, go on. Welcome back, folks, to another fantastic episode of That Sounds Terrible, Go On. I'm your host, Corey.
And I'm your host, Steve.
Steve?
What's up?
We have someone joining us here today.
No way. No, what?
Hello, I'm an interloper.
Oh my goodness, it's Corey.
Is that Corey from the Movie Chumps?
It is indeed.
Wow.
It's been what, like 2 years since we've done this?
Yeah, because we didn't do it last year.
No, you didn't. That's right.
Well, the strike happened and we ain't no scabs.
Damn straight.
My son got so excited that I was doing this because he's really getting into The Simpsons. He's like, "You're what?" I'm like, "Yeah." He's like, "Oh, that's so cool."
Nice. Shout out to little Toby out there.
What if that was his actual name, though? He just shot in the
It
dark.
is. No, it's not.
It is now.
It is now.
Dad, why do you keep calling me Toby? Don't worry about it.
That's right, folks. Today we are revisiting our Simpsons Treehouse of Horror segment ratings. This time we are rating the 12 segments that take up Treehouse of Horrors 9 through 12. We're going to be giving you our top 5 as we go. Now, something else too important to remember when we do lists on this pod, because much like life, everything is a competition, such is the same here. So once you're done listening to the episode, be sure to hit us up on our Facebook, Instagram, or YouTube pages and cast your vote for who has the best list. Is it me?
No.
Is it Steve?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it our guest?
Probably.
Currently, when it comes to the totals of who is in the lead, I have won 3 of the top 10 lists. Steve, you've won 2. Our guests have won 1. And there's been a tie twice.
Was I one of those guests?
You sure were, buddy.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I think that was the last Treehouse of Horror. You won that one.
Let's see if I can repeat.
All right, the Michael Jordan of podcasting. Let's calm down now.
Is it because he's tall?
Yes, that's it. Also, surprisingly, exponentially better at me than basketball.
I think you could take them nowadays if you did some cocaine. But in any case, folks, Simpsons Treehouse of Horror. Here we are, spooky month.
Ooh.
We got to kick it off the right way. Kick it off with a classic. And, as I'm sitting here and I'm rewatching these episodes for probably the 100th plus time in my life, I find myself coming up with a lot of questions. For instance, Steve, don't I know you?
Don't you?
Hmm, let's find out.
Let's.
Question number one. In The Terror of Tiny Toon, Bart and Lisa are transported into the Itchy and Scratchy cartoon after they replace the batteries with a stick of plutonium. Now I have to ask, is there a cartoon other than The Simpsons you would want to be transported into? Corey, let's start with you.
Off the top of my head, Bob's Burgers. Honestly, just because I've always wanted to try Bob's Burgers for real, to see if they're as good as he seems to proclaim that they are. Clientele and the food I'd like to enjoy.
Fun fact, there is a Bob's Burgers burger cookbook, which I bought, and I've done a bunch of them, and they are fantastic. Highly recommend.
They actually sound pretty good, and I like the fact that he gets so clever with the titles.
Yeah, I think the best one so far is the child molester, because it comes with candy.
Yeah, you can't beat free candy.
Not in this van. Steve, what do you got for us?
If I were to be transported into a cartoon, I'm going to pick a similar reason to Corey, the food. I'm going to go with Wallace and Gromit. Because there's just something about that cheese and that food that just looks terrific. Even though it's British food, it's better in stop motion.
That cheese does be looking delicious.
Mm-hmm. Plus, there's so many whimsical inventions to play with. I'm down. Let's go. Corey K., what are you jumping into for this one?
I'd have to say Futurama. I think that if I was dropped into Futurama, first off, I'm in the future. There's a lot of fun to be had, a lot of different adventures to be had. Space travel is nothing. Honestly, I'm going to automatically get assigned a job where I can make money off the bat. And you know what? I just think I'd really have a lot of fun in that universe. So, Futurama.
Plus, you got dishes on other planets you can try. It's not just home Earth fare.
I could go for some poplars right now.
Get some Slurm.
And Hypnotoad could make anything taste good.
All right, question 2. In Desperately Zeking Xena, comic book guy plays the role of the Collector, a supervillain who begins collecting sci-fi, comic, and fantasy performers. Now, is there anything you collect? Corey.
Yes, actually, as a matter of fact, I collect movies, and I was doing mostly digital, but I've recently switched back to physical media just because of liking having the ability to own it. Because when you buy a digital copy, you don't really technically own it, and there's just too much stuff that's constantly being swiped off of streaming and put somewhere else. This was a happening coincidence, but I happened to buy all 5 of the Indiana Jones movies this week on Steelbook 4K, and it's the same week they took 4 out of the 5 off of Disney Plus. So I was like, okay, yes, I'm completely justified in taking on collecting physical media again. So yeah, that's what I collect.
Weird. It was my understanding there were only 3 of those movies.
Fair.
Steve, what about you?
This is a more recent collection that I've started, so it's not huge yet, but I've gotten into collecting vinyl. Right now I've got just like the essentials, so Melodrama by Lorde, Demon Days by Gorillaz, and a couple of Murder by Death albums because they're the greatest band in the world.
They're not just a tribute?
That's right. Tenacious D wishes they could step up to Murder by Death. I said it.
What about you, Corey K?
I collect video games. I am currently sitting at 1,225 physical video games, which is still pretty insane to me. My basement needs so much more bookshelves, honestly. And one day I'll get around to it. But yeah, I collect video games. I have been since I was 19 years old. So it's been 14 years now I've been collecting video games. I collect anything from NES up to current. Handheld games are fun. I like memorabilia as well. Like I have it's from Japan, but it's essentially a shot glass with what I can only assume is lead paint on it, but it's like Dr. Mario style. That's a really cool thing I picked up a while back. I have like Nintendo comics, like actual like comic books that Nintendo put out. I just love that kind of stuff. That's what I collect.
Nice.
Question 3. In Night of the Dolphin, dolphins rise up from the sea to take over the land. What's another animal you feel could successfully pull this off? Corey.
Interesting question. So one that could pull off like a taking over the world like the Dolphins did. What's that one I think it's a monkey in Australia that has those big yellow eyes, or maybe it's in Madagascar. I can't think of the name.
Lemur?
No, it's like a lemur type. Yeah, I think that because I think they would just mesmerize us all, and the next thing we know, we're out of our houses. So I'll go with them. Steve, what about you?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if an animal takes over the planet, it's going to be the single most evil creature that has ever been conceived, the reindeer. They are awful hell beasts. They are unstoppable when they want to be. I don't think we would stand a chance if they decided to take over. Reindeer will f you up. Corey Ko, how about you?
I'm going to have to say emus. And the whole reason for that is the Australian Army fought 2 battles against a giant wild pack of emus, and they lost both times.
Damn.
Now that's a big time L right there.
I read about this like here and there. I want to deep dive it at some point. Honestly, I really wish someone would just make the horror movie
Oh,
based
that
on
sounds
this.
based on a true story. Really? Yes, really.
And yeah, no, they're flat out shooting these off, and they completely lost both of those battles. And it's wild to me that that would ever happen.
That sounds like a crazy story.
Again, one of these days, I'm going to just get the ADHD fixation to just deep dive into everything about that. Like, I want to find journals of people from the front line. I want to read those PTSD dreams. The feathers were everywhere, man.
It's like the letters back to their moms from the Civil War, except that focus.
Crikey.
Crikey indeed. And now, I know you.
And we know you.
All right, folks, that's going to be Don't I Know You Now. Before we get into this list, just a quick commercial break. All right, folks, I am here at Goblin's Den Tattoo out in the lovely Syracuse, New York, being currently inked by Leah, owner, operator, and a fantastic individual. Leah, how are you doing today?
We're doing good. We're doing good.
Doing really good, doing good. Am I doing good? Am I sitting good?
Yes.
Excellent, fantastic.
We're both hydrated.
That's the dream. Let's be honest here. So how long have you been tattooing for?
I have been tattooing for technically 5 years.
So tell me, what are your favorite tattoos to both design and put on people's bodies?
I think the biggest thing for me is for someone to be really inspired with their idea, really excited. That's always a plus, and not just like a last 6-second kind of deal. Something that you can think about and be like, yep, this is how we're going to do it, critique it, special, all that jazz. But personally, when it comes to style, my drawing style is preferred anime, but I do like cartoons. I do like spooky, scary stuff. I like plants and stuff. A lot of people come to me for floral. Yeah, so I like more animated stuff that can be stylized. Kind of neo-traditional, but not so out there.
Well, you heard it here, folks. If you're looking for any of those kinds of styles or designs, you know exactly where you need to hit up. That again, that is Goblin's Den Tattoo out in Syracuse, New York. What's the Instagram name?
Instagram name is Goblin's Den Tattoo. Same for Facebook. We're currently adjusting our social medias and getting them more active. So Instagram, Goblin's Den Tattoo. Facebook, Goblin's Den Tattoo. And my name is Leah Tran, if you're trying to look for me personally. We also have another artist, Sid, and Sid is also on there as well.
And folks, the Goblin's Den Tattoo is also a safe place for those of you who are LGBTQ+. So if you're looking for a shop that's both safe and not run by pieces of human garbage, then we can give you the guarantee that the Goblin's Den is the destination. Again, that's the Goblin's Den. Find them on Instagram or Facebook and book your next session today. Welcome back, folks.
Hey there.
All right, guys, we got to get into this top 5. People are clamoring. They are pounding at our email door. I don't even know how they're doing it because our email doesn't even have a door. It's an inbox. Where are they finding this door?
It's a very small door.
Oh, right. I remember reading about that in a National Geographic.
Yeah. Recently discovered the email door.
Well, folks, I think it's time that we discover what makes up each of our top 5 Treehouse of Horror segments from Treehouse of Horrors 9 through 12. And we're going to start here with number 5. Steve, kick us off.
All right, coming in at number 5 for me is going to be Scary Tales Come True, which is from Treehouse of Horror number 11. This is the fairy tale homage, touches on a lot of Grimm's fairy tales. Bart and Lisa are peasant children. Lisa has a fairy tale book that she loves. Bart doesn't care about it. They get thrown into the woods because Homer lost his job as an oaf, and now the kids have to fend for themselves, coming across things like the Three Bears house and the candy house from Hansel and Gretel, to name a few. And this is just really well done. There's a lot of great gags in here. I especially love the Three Bears house where they end up locking Goldilocks inside and she gets mauled to death by the bears. Great gag. And especially the witch mentions, I have a boyfriend. His name is George. Looks at the cauldron. George Cauldron. And everyone's like, yeah, okay. And then at the end, George Cauldron shows up with a bouquet of flowers for her. I love that gag so much. It is terrific. A lot of fun.
It's a nice callback to a Brady Bunch bit where I think it was Jan at one point was trying to like, oh, I have a boyfriend, and everyone's like, oh yeah, what's his name? And she was like, George Candlestick or something really weird. Like there was at least 1 or 2 episodes where she did something like that. It's a great gag, great callback.
The Simpsons does that more often than not, and it's actually really hilarious to do. Like the one that kills me every time is when I forget what episode it is. Saying he's at Moe's. He says, looking for a Joey Jojo Shabadoo Jr. He's like, that's the worst name I ever heard. The guy just starts crying and runs out of the bar.
Yeah, that's right. Barney's like, Joey Jojo.
Love it.
Little things like that. Excellent choice. Corey, what do you got?
So my number 5 is Hex in the City from Treehouse of Horror 12. And in this one, this is where Homer goes to a fortune teller's office. Homer, being Homer, just messes everything up, and she curses him, brings the curse back to his loved ones. Marge becomes fully covered in hair, even though it starts with a beard. Lisa turns into a centaur. Bart's neck becomes floppy. Maggie turns into a ladybug. Mo gets stuffed unconscious in a pickle jar. Lenny and Carl get crushed by a helicopter. It's just more and more ridiculousness as time goes on. And Homer is actually forced to take a leprechaun home to try to see if he can to combat that, but that leprechaun's just super hyperactive through the whole time. There was just so many things that just killed me. Like, first of all, that they're going not into like Little Italy, they go into ethnic town, where like basically every stereotype you could think of. And the one that killed me is the one serenading saying, "I got cholera here." I love the little signs that always happen in The Simpsons, like when you come up to the fortune teller, it says, "After hours, please use automated teller sign." And then the distraction of Homer coming and says, "Marge, I need to be in court next Tuesday." Beads. And then he just gets taken up in all the beads. And then just like some of the stuff like Marge saying about her beard. So it is noticeable. And the ones that like where he says Jesus is like 6 replicants, like 6 leprechauns. And the fact that he uses Homer to catch the leprechaun, wants to use Lucky Charms as bait, but he accidentally uses tricks at first.
It's such a good gag. It's such a good gag.
It's a great. There's gag after gag that is so good in this, and the fact that the fortune teller and the leprechaun get married at the end, and that Yoda is somehow the overseer there, the pastor for that is just delight. So I just love this one. It's great. It just escalates to ridiculousness of what actually happens to Homer's people in his life.
I just love that the leprechaun is just constantly saying Celtic gibberish. Just I don't know why, but the delivery of that just kills me every time.
It's great too, because you feel like in the writer's room, everyone's like, no, more stereotypical Irish leprechaun.
Yes.
You need to go harder on this.
Oh yeah, the stereotypes in this were absolutely horrible. Like at one point, Homer is holding the leprechaun in a crate when he goes into the Romani woman's office and and he opens it. It's like, oh yeah, well here, attack him. And the leprechaun's asleep, and he's like, "Wake up, you lousy drunk!" And he like
Yeah.
shakes the thing.
Yes.
It's just, it's so offensive, but like, it's just, you're steering so much into it that like, I guess I can't like really be mad about it at the same time.
I can't, and I can't think there's at one point where the leprechaun's making out with the fortune teller, and he says something like, "Oh, tickle me blarney stones," or something like that.
Oh, leaves and clovers.
Yeah, that
he
was it.
just starts
That was
saying-
it. Yes, but yeah, that's my number 5.
Beautiful. Great K.
I have Desperately Zeeking Xena from Treehouse of Horror 10. This one is where Lucy Lawless, dressed up as Xena, is giving a Q&A session to a bunch of nerds. She gets kidnapped by the comic book guy who is playing a supervillain called the Collector, and she ends up having to get saved by Bart and Lisa, who through reasons now have superpowers and are known as Stretch Boy and Clobber Girl. It's presented in a very old school adventure of the week style superhero comic, including a brief intro to show the audience how our heroes got their powers to begin with. But it also pokes a bit of fun at the genre, like when Lucy Lawless started beating the crap out of the Collector, which is not something that, you know, the female in distress would do in these comics. She's even doing like the Warrior Princess battle cry and everything. We also get the whole like, how will our heroes get out of this one scene? And it's also poking fun at collectors when the Collector unwraps the real Darth Maul double-sided lightsaber and is mortified when it's pointed out that it's no longer a collectible because he removed it from its original packaging.
And that's what defeats him.
Yep, he ends up falling into his own trap and dying. For me, it's one of the more memorable ones from my childhood, and I just always look forward to watching it whenever I'm watching this Treehouse of Horror episode. It's just tons of fun from beginning to end, and as someone who loves comics, especially like the history of comics, I think they just did a really good job at capturing the essence of those like Adventure of the Week style of comics of like the 1960s and so.
That was a solid one too, I thought, and it was right at the height of Lucy Lawless being like at her peak, which was really, and the fact that she could go on there and kind of make fun of herself. I always appreciate that when any guest voice that comes on The Simpsons, and that whole scene where she's like talking to the group of fans and everything, it always reminds me of that SNL skit with William Shatner. He's like, "It's just a TV show." He's like, "Move out of your parents' basements."
Which of course also gave us the iconic line, "A wizard did it," when the nerds are like throwing questions like, at one point you're riding this winged beast, but at the other you're riding a completely different winged beast. How do you explain this? She's like, a wizard did it.
And they're all like, "Oh."
And especially like you're right about the, you know, Lucy Lawless poking fun at herself. Like at the end when she starts flying, you know, carrying Bart and Lisa away, and Lisa just goes, "Wait, Xena can't fly." And she's like, "I told you, I'm not Xena, I'm Lucy Lawless."
I also love that the Collector has Matt Groening as one of his collections.
Yeah.
Of course.
Love when they work him in there.
Good visual gags. Moving on to number 4. Steve, what do you got for us?
Coming in at number 4 for me is going to be House of Wax from Treehouse of Horror number 12. This is just a delightful time. Marge sees an ad for a smart house, gets the whole house redone, and it's run by an artificial intelligence that looks suspiciously like Hal from 2001: A Space Odyssey, except it's voiced by none other than James Bond / Remington Steele himself, Pierce Brosnan. Hal, falls in love with Marge, plots Homer's demise, and tries to take over. It's a lot of fun. It's great homage without steering too hard in just 2001. I love that at the end, Pierce ends up with Patty and Selma and is just kind of stuck with their droning. I love the little windshield wiper when Marge has taken her steamy bath and Pierce is just perving out on her.
Oh, yes. My.
He must have had so much fun recording that. And then finally, Homer saying, you know, if I were to be killed, she would be there for any man or machine. Machine, you say? Yes, machine. Just so deliciously evil, delightful. I love it.
It's so, I like how he analyzed what favorite food they like by looking at their poop, and for some reason, Homer, it's various eggs. And then I love how Homer just goes unexplained bacon and then just dies horrifically. That one was great. But the one that just really killed me is when he was trying to like rip him apart and said, "Don't take out my British charm unit."
Yes.
And the second he pulls it out, it's like, thanks a lot, asswipe. Just-
That and the one that just really killed me was when they were doing the voices to program it, and one of them was Dennis Miller, and I think Lisa said, "Isn't that the one that caused those suicides?"
Classic.
Corey, what about you? What's your number 4?
My number 4 is from Treehouse of Horror 10, and it is Life's a Glitch and Then You Die. And then this one and this just felt so topical and made me feel old because it's all Y2K based. And for of course, somehow Homer's the Y2 compliance officer and didn't, of course, neglected to do any of his duties. So there's this huge virus that causes destruction and a societal collapse. And then they learn, however, that there's going to be like a rocket to take humanity's best and brightest away. One's going to carry them to Mars. So that's I love the whole concept of that because I was old enough to remember, and you both are too. I think I was I was in college when it happened. Just the total panic that people thought this hell was going to happen when the year 2000 hit, and then of course none of that happened. But there's so many little things in this episode that just made me crack up. Like from right opening the beginning where it says, "We're not White Snake, we're Poison. I thought we were Quiet Riot. It says here we're Rat." Like they're just lumping all those 80s bands in with each other, which I absolutely love. And I don't know why it's been so long since I've seen this one that I almost died laughing is when they said that when Dick Clark just turns into a robot and just gets on fire. Because there was always that big joke when I was growing up that Dick Clark was like ageless because he didn't seem, from one to the next. And I don't know why, but when Krusty says somehow his pacemaker gets set to hummingbird and he's just twinkling all over the place.
I need to drink my weight in nectar.
Yes, that was awesome. And of course the realization that Homer and Bart get that they're on like not the right rocket. They're with like the most horrible people on Earth, and including Tom Arnold, who again is in on the joke and is just like, yeah, I'm awful. I'm a terrible person. What I love about a lot of these vignettes is that there's just these little things that kind of almost like a snowball effect of funny. And that one like really killed me. So I love that one. Life's a Glitch and Then You Die from Treehouse of Horror 10.
My favorite moment from that one is, you're right, it just kind of like keeps snowballing and like the jokes just keep getting like it's an absolute joke machine. I love that about that episode. Where it truly crescendos for me is when Homer is realizing, and it's like, oh my God, Rosie O'Donnell, and she starts like singing Broadway tunes to everybody on there. That always got me laughing so hard every time it comes on the screen.
I love Rick James finishing a song and then immediately getting arrested.
Yeah, that was good too.
It's pretty standard of Rick James, I'd say.
Rick James is a hell of a drug. Hey, Corey K, what you got for number 4?
Number 4 is, Steve, this happens every year. Mine is also House of Wax from Treehouse of Horror 12.
Ayo.
Yeah, I'm a sucker for a parody, and that still does its own thing. I think these segments work best with proper pacing, and this one is really, really good pacing. It makes you think the story is going one way, but then kind of throws you for a loop by having Homer literally clawing his way up through the floor after we've been made to believe that he's killed. I'm not always big on the jokes, but I feel like the story is one that I could truly believe would have like a Tales of the Crypt made from it, for instance. Now, I also haven't seen it yet, but you also brought up that it's like a smart house, and I feel like the design in there has to have something to do with Disney Channel's smart house. There has to have been some type of tribute to that, I would imagine. Again, I haven't seen it yet. I might watch it this year, but who knows? I also love when Homer goes downstairs with the axe, immediately starts attacking the one thing, and then Lisa's like, Dad, that's the water softener.
Oh, Homer.
All right, folks, moving on to number 3. Steve, what do you got?
Coming in at number 3 for me is going to be Starship Poopers from Treehouse of Horror number 9. This is such a fun concept. The basic premise behind this is that, God, is it Kang or Kodos? One of the alien beasts is Maggie's real father. because Marge got abducted by aliens and he shot her with a gun when she wasn't looking and it got her pregnant. And that's how Maggie came about. And they discover this by Maggie slowly growing tentacles and a giant spiky tooth and just starting to turn super, super evil. I always love how they work Kang and Kodos into these every year. When they bring Maggie to the doctor, his advice is fire and lots of it. And Marge just goes, oh, that's your cure for everything. I also love the gag of, say, oh, Maggie got her first baby tooth, and then a little bit later, Homer says, oh, Maggie lost her baby legs.
Like he's such a proud dad when he says it like it's a normal thing.
Yes. Love Kang and Kodos showing up at the door and Homer going, oh, great, Mormons.
We're actually quantum Presbyterians. That just slayed me.
It's such a quick throwaway line, too. Honestly, this was the first time watching this that I noticed that line and like just how good it is.
It's great.
I love when they end up at Jerry Springer.
Yes.
Just in the perfect, like, oh, wow, Jerry Springer didn't solve anything, and now he's dead.
I love that everyone devolves into swearing and fighting, just going full Jerry Springer.
And I think, like, they were even, like, talking, like, very calmly, like, oh, yeah, no, we'll figure this out in a very civil manner, and then immediately jumping into, like, just the bleeping and the fist fighting and everything, and Jerry's acting super calm until Maggie starts, like, killing him, and then he's like, get the baby off me!
Just terrific. Also, I just love when the aliens abduct Marge, they, like, shine a light down on her, and then just a little lasso comes and pulls her up instead of a tractor beam. Just a nice little touch there.
Corey, what about you? What's your number 3?
My number 3 is also going to be from Treehouse of Horror 9. It's actually going to be Hell to Pay. When I read up on this, I remembered seeing the old thing it was based on, but it's actually a parody of an Amazing Stories episode called Hell to Pay, Hell. In this one, Snake's arrested for smoking inside the Quickie Mart. Chief Wiggum explains that it's Snake's third strike, so he's going to be executed, because apparently that's how they roll in Springfield. But before he takes him away, Chief Wiggum points out that Apu, Mo, and of course Bart, who's hiding in the corner, and Snake says that he's going to kill them all. So then there's an execution on live TV where Homer ends up visiting Dr. Nick after the fact, who transplants snake hair onto his head. And then from there, he starts controlling Homer's mind and some shenanigans and stuff and shoot from there. It ends up being with Chief Wiggum, like, shooting the toupee at the end and saying that says comment about this is a bad hair day. And I love the fact that Marge just starts, there are 2 people who are dead. And then she's like, oh, wait, I get it. And just starts laughing. Again, there's a lot of like little subtle things that made me like really laugh. For example, the fact that Mo is eating Pensillos, and it's just the tagline is breakfast cereal for people with SIF, which is great. And and Ed McMahon shows up in this, and they refer talking about a show. Next up is World's Deadliest Exec, like just because it made me think of all like the crazy shit that Fox, the channel, used to show for shows and still do it to some effect. They also said, it's like we're only running something about like only running crucifixions is it sweeps week again. Then the fact that the first thing that pops in this person's head when Apu dies is, well, who's going to run the Quickie Mart? It's like the person just died, and like that's their first reaction. So there's all these these little things that are Simpsons is great, especially with the Treehouse of Horror being topical. But what I also appreciate too, just as a general thing for these Treehouse of Horror, is that obviously the Simpsons is somewhat fantastical, but they're really unrestrained when it comes to the Treehouse of Horror. Like they can play in whatever sandbox they want. They don't have to have any rules, and I think it makes them go for it a little bit more. And I think for this one, I think is very true. So that's my number 3 is Hell to Pay from Treehouse of Horror 9.
I love when Homer is getting the hair transplant done, and he's like, is this legal? Dr. Nick's delivery of, yeah, sure, whatever. Just perfect. Corey K., what's your number 3?
My number 3 is Ghost Dad from Treehouse of Horror 11. So in this one, Homer dies after eating a piece of broccoli, and he gets up to heaven. St. Peter is there, and St. Peter's like, you haven't done one good deed in your entire life. So he sends him back to Earth as a ghost, where he has to do one good deed, just one single good deed in order to get into heaven. And then at the end, he does finally do one good deed. St. Peter's like, I wasn't watching, and just sends him down to hell anyways. I feel like it's got a really good pace to the story. A lot of the gags about Homer almost dying before he's done in by a single piece of broccoli are always really funny. Like the tree falls in front of him and he's like, haha, better luck next time. Or he's getting bit by a rattlesnake and he's like, he'll let go eventually. You know, rattlesnakes, nature's quitters. I also like how, again, in all of 24 hours, he only got the one single good deed in, but St. Peter just wasn't paying attention. He's like, hey, I thought you guys saw everything. No, that's Santa Claus. And of course, the line, well, I'll be damned. I'm afraid so, yes. It's a lot of fun. And I just love a good pace to the story. They started off weird and they keep it weird. And that's again, same thing you said, Corey. I love that about the Treehouse of Horrors is they can just do whatever they want. And when you're giving writers carte blanche with characters that are as established as The Simpsons are, just giving them the most easiest volleyball serve of all time. All right, folks, before we get into our number two, just one more quick commercial break. We'll be right back.
Ad break, it's a commercial. Ad break, make us some money.
Hey folks, did you know that we're a couple of corporate whores? We will do whatever you say for money. That's right. We'll give an ad that promises the world to your potential customers for whatever you're trying to sell. Is it true? Doesn't matter. Is it going to work? Still doesn't matter. Give us $5, give us $10. We'll make all your dreams come true as long as your dreams are limited to having your product hawked on our podcast.
But Steve, what if I don't have an advertisement written for you?
Well, for a small extra fee, we can write one for you, aka make one up on the spot and half-ass it.
That's right, folks. If you have any interest in advertising with us, please hit us up on our Instagram at That Sounds Terrible Pod, or find us on Twitter by looking up That Sounds Terrible. Go on.
Slide into our DMs so we can slide into your ads. We're going to do an ad for you.
That's right, folks. Fill our bank accounts so we can line your pockets with that sweet, sweet internet money. Welcome back, folks.
Hey there. You made it.
They sure did, Steve. And you know what we're making? We're making a list, and we're checking it twice. Wait, wrong holiday.
Close enough. It's a Christmas movie.
It sure is. And we're going to get into our number two in our top 5 list here today. So, Steve, kick us off. What's your number 2 in these Treehouses of Horror?
Well, believe it or not, coming in at number 2 for me is Ghost Dad. Yeah, this is such a fun gag machine. I especially love Homer going down to Earth, immediately eating the broccoli and dying again. It was ridiculous enough the first time, but oh my god, incredible the second time. When he's trying to help the old lady across the street, but then from everyone else's perspective, the woman is just like levitating up in the air, higher and higher until she falls to her death. Incredible. I also love that John Wayne is in hell, because yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is.
Yeah, he is.
I say f*** him.
And also, this is a parody of a movie that unfortunately stars Bill Cosby.
I say f*** him.
Funny enough, directed by Sidney Poitier, too.
No.
Yes.
Oh my god, you're right.
I found that out about 3 years ago, and I was like, this can't be real.
Oh, Sidney.
That's certainly a choice for one of the greatest actors ever to live.
We'll get there. We'll get there. I'm kidding. I don't know if I feel comfortable doing that one.
We don't need to do Cos.
No. Nobody needs to do a Cosby anything, which...
No.
Yeah...
Do Leonard Part 6.
I haven't seen parts 1 through 5, so I'm just going to be lost on the plot. Corey, what's your number 2?
Well, funny enough, guys, my number 2 is Ghost Dad as well from Treehouse of Horror 11. I really love this one, too. There's just the fact that the broccoli is really the big bad in this whole vignette. It's kind of killing me because I think they call it one of the deadliest plants on Earth, and it's terrible.
It tries to tell you by its terrible, terrible taste.
And I love how at the beginning, Homer's like, he has that, I think he got Fortune cookie says, you will get a compliment. Oh, it was to the horoscope. You will get a compliment from a coworker, Lenny. And then Lenny later does give him a compliment. Is it Homer says some line that says, I'm not running for Jesus. And the one that I forgot, or you mentioned too, Steve, I like is the old lady who ends up dying. He just plays it off with, I'm pretty sure she was going to be the next Hitler. That's my number 2 is Ghost Dad from Treehouse of Horror 11.
Steve, you brought it up, but I also really like when he eats the broccoli again and he goes back up and St. Peter's like, what? And he's like, I ate the broccoli again. And St. Peter just goes, you have 23 hours left. Like, he is just so sick and tired of his crap. He's like, no, we're done. You lose an hour.
Or the fact that what he died a second time was his ghost died a second time, which shouldn't be able to choke in the first place because it's a ghost.
Broccoli is just that deadly.
Yes, it is.
Corey K, what you got for your number 2?
My number 2 is going to be Hell to Pay from Treehouse of Horror 9. It ramps up the weird and freaky as it goes, and it never wavers. I love the design change that they give to Homer when he's taken over by Snake. And then the climax of the hairpiece coming to life as the cops are shooting it several times, and it keeps trying to get away the entire time. It's funny, it's well written, it's got just this weird vibe to it, and I'm not surprised it's based off of something that I haven't seen as of yet, but it's just a ton of fun. Even the murders are kind of fun. The way Apu gets killed is he gets shoved into the squishy machine. Mo dies by getting his heart ripped out. And then he falls into his syphila or his penicillos, which is a callback to an earlier line because Mo walks in and goes, hey, Apu, do you got a cereal for people with syphilis?
Which only Mo would ask a question like that.
Oh, yes.
And I never caught that line and then looked at the what the cereal box actually said until this watch through, and I'm really glad I did. It's so funny. It's so funny. It's so good. And also Cheap Wiggum showing up. You're under arrest for the murders of Mo Sislak and Apunda Hasa Napasa Fasa. Just Mo. Just Mo. Because he can't say Apu's last name. Which is a running joke, I think, on the show, too. Like, everyone's consistently messing it up.
I also love when the hairpiece attacks Bart in the face and Homer decides to just start punching him. Just punches him right in the face and then starts strangling him, of course.
Because he's criticizing getting punched in the face. He's like, that's my face, you idiot!
Why are you little?
It's good to see families being brought together.
Oh, yes.
Indeed.
We're finally at our number 1, folks. I'm excited. You're excited. Let's get into it. Steve, the moment of truth. Your number 1 Treehouse of Horror segment.
Coming in at number 1 for me is going to be The Terror of Tiny Toon from Treehouse of Horror number 9. As mentioned earlier, Bart and Lisa are left home alone while Marge takes Maggie trick-or-treating. Marge took the batteries out of the remote because she doesn't want them watching any violent Halloween cartoons. Bart replaces the batteries with plutonium from Homer's toolbox. And the plutonium gives the remote magical powers, where Bart can control life outside of the television, and it also sends Bart and Lisa into the television, where they're in an itchy, scratchy cartoon, find they can get actually hurt, and run for their lives. I feel like this is at least a little bit of an homage to the movie Pleasantville, which is always nice to see represented. Most importantly, though, above all else, this episode features the one and only Poochie. It's a rare appearance from him. He just gets hit by the cop car that Bart and Lisa are in, and presumably dies, which is really all we need, because he died on the way back to his home planet.
I think it's the only time he actually is shown on screen after the Poochie episode. I don't think he's ever brought up again or shown on screen.
Which is what makes it so special.
Absolutely.
I also thought too, and this is maybe a deep cut. I don't know if either one of you guys have seen this movie, but it still felt like kind of an homage to a film from the early 90s called Stay Tuned. It was John Ritter. Basically, he gets sold this satellite dish from hell with all these 666 channels, and he gets sucked into it and everything. It also has the awful, terrible Jeffrey Jones
I say fuck 'em.
in it as the demon. But it's kind of quirky and funny, but it kind of really reminded me of that one for some reason.
Could be. Absolutely. I also love when they fall into Regis, and I think it's Kathy Lee at this point as his co-host.
Yep.
fall into the pot of sauce they're making, and Reed just goes, "Oh, my eyes, my beautiful eyes." I always love when Reed just plays himself in things.
And then Kathy Lee just goes, "That's it. I'm going home. Tom DeLuise can interview himself."
So great. Corey, what do you got for number one slot?
All right. So my number one is one that Steve already mentioned, and that is Starship Poopers from Treehouse of Horror 9. Anytime that Kang and Kodos showed up for anything, you'll always have my money, and I love the fact that they're front and center of this. Some of them are great. The little lines that happen, like "prepare to be abducted." Why would you even say that? But the one that I loved the fact where when Marge was talking about how she got pregnant with Maggie, and I can't remember if it was Kodos or Kang was the father. It was this, you can choose from like three choices, and one was like backseat of a Camaro, another was an alley behind a porno theater, which I thought was great. And then her saying, "Well, that was awfully quick. What are you implying?" And yeah, it's also a time capsule with Jerry Springer, the old Jerry Springer stuff kit. And I the nice capper them saying, we're just going to go kill all your politicians in Washington. And someone goes, "Well, don't forget Ken Starr." So yeah, Starship Poopers. That's my number one. That's a great one to me.
Quality. Corey K, how about you? What's your number one slot?
My number one slot, and Steve, it happened again. Terror of Tiny Toon from Treehouse of Horror number 9.
Hey!
I love this for many different reasons. First off, so as we know, The Simpsons is the first primetime cartoon where it didn't do the traditional like cartoon stuff, right? It was a cartoon sitcom and it broke the mold in showing that what adult animation can really be. They kind of take that idea and inject it here a little bit, where, as we know, traditional cartoon violence that we see from Itchy and Scratchy was pretty common back then. However, Itchy and Scratchy is more of like a parody, or Itchy and Scratchy is more of a satire of it, so it actually like doubles like how gruesome it is, because Tom and Jerry aren't gutting each other at the end of the day, but they're doing that in a way of like paying tribute to like the Tom and Jerry era. So again, you take the Simpsons characters and you throw them into that traditional cartoon setting. And honestly, it's kind of brand new territory for the series. All the gags in this are timeless and fun. Everything from like they have the cartoonish sound effects that are littered about. You have Bart literally drawing an eject button for him and Lisa to press to escape. It's a old like Warner Brothers gag to have like, "Oh look, I drew a tunnel and now I can go through it," kind of thing. I just think that the thought that went into what if they got sucked into Itchy and Scratchy and we just kind of actually made The Simpsons into a real like cartoonish type of show for just one segment. I think genius writing. It's absolutely funny and I love the homage that they give.
Hell yeah.
Definitely.
All right, folks, that's going to be our top 5 list. We did it.
We sure did, especially me.
Especially you, buddy. We're very proud of you.
We did that list hard.
We did it so hard that I think I'm going to need just one more advertisement break. Please don't go anywhere. Bye, thanks.
Cha-ching!
Folks, you've been asking about it for years. You come up to me, you come up to Steve, and you say, "Guys, where's the merch for the pod?"
I know, right? Just leave us alone for 2 seconds, people.
That's right, Steve. We've been way too busy doing all types of other things, such as jumping jacks and putting together puzzles and
Documents.
tons of documents. But who has time to sit there and truly set up a merch store?
Not me, I'll tell you what. If only there was an easier way for us to open up a merch store to sell our merch to people.
Well, you know what, Steve? There is. Live right now, we have the That Sounds Terrible Go On podcast store, and it's all available on redbubble.com. Go to redbubble.com, look up our store. It is TSTGo-pod. Again, TSTGo-pod. You'll see fun little things that we say on here. You'll find stickers, shirts, hats.
That's some high quality merchandise if I ever did see it right there.
So that's right, folks. Hit up redbubble.com, search TSTGo-pod, all one word, and we'll see you there.
Capitalism, baby!
Welcome back, folks.
Hey!
Good evening.
Good evening indeed, Corey and Steve. We have just completed our top 5 favorite segments from Simpsons Treehouse of Horror 9 through 12. And now we got to talk about, of course, what was our favorite of these? We're all Simpsons fans. We love revisiting these. So, gotta ask you guys, which one of these was your all-around favorite episode? Steve, let's start with you.
For me, it's going to be number 9. Feel like that's just a banger run with Hell to Pay, Terror of Tiny Toon, and Starship Poopers. They all knock it out of the park. It was really hard to pick, honestly, my top 5. Hell to Pay was close to being on my list as well. It's a lot of fun. Corey, what's your favorite?
I'm actually in agreement with you, Steve. My favorite of the bunch is going to be Treehouse of Horror 9. I always usually go based off of how many, when I do my top 5, how many of my top 5 were from the same like episode, and it's usually that's the one that's my favorite. You know, my number 1 was from 9, and my number 3 was from 9 for my list. And just like you, the Terror of Tiny Toon almost made my list. By this much, it probably would have been 5. But overall, like you just said, from soup to nuts, from start to beginning, this is just a banger of an episode. Laugh through the whole thing. Even though Terror of Tiny Toon didn't get on my list, it's still absolutely hysterical. So yeah, my favorite for sure is Treehouse of Horror 9.
Hell yeah. Corey K., how about you?
You know, guys, birds of a feather flock together, so of course I have to go with Treehouse of Horror number 9. Hell to Pay, The Terror of Tiny Toon, Starship Poopers, which almost made my list. Each one of these hits in their own different way. There's just such a good mix of storytelling and humor in this. Like, Hell to Pay is just a great story and a great parody. Terror of Tiny Toon is just a great exploration of these characters, of putting them in a different environment and seeing what their reactions would be. And then Starship Poopers is just funny. Beginning to end, completely ridiculous. Kang and Kodos, who doesn't love them? Don't tell me, because I don't want to talk to those types of people. So yeah, it's Treehouse of Horror 9 all day. And now, folks, we got to get into which one of these did we find to be the worst episode overall? Now, we've said here before, while The Simpsons has definitely gone down in terms of quality over the years, the Treehouse of Horrors are always still worth tuning in, because even when they're bad, they're generally pretty fun. I think we agreed upon that in the first episode that we tackled with this.
Hell yeah.
But again, everything's a competition. We all agreed on what the best is. Got to find out. Which one did we find is the worst of these episodes? Steve.
For me, it's going to be Treehouse of Horror number 10, featuring I Know What You Diddly Did, Desperately Zeking Xena, and Life's a Glitch, Then You Die. I really like I Know What You Diddly Did. I thought it was a lot of fun. It just overall, the rest of it doesn't quite measure up to the other episodes for me. Not to say that this is bad by any means. I still loved it, but it just hit a little bit less than the other 3 for me.
Can I just say, by the way, too, about the I Know What You Diddly Did? Like, who goes on fog walks? Like, like only Flanders would do that.
Yes.
That was just like that. That's just really stuck with me. Yeah.
Love it. Oh, yeah, just real quick, I love the gag of Homer driving and saying, "Oh, we got away with murder. That was so easy." He sees Millhouse. "Oh, I never liked that kid," and starts driving in his direction. Corey, what's your least favorite of these?
So for me, it's going to be Treehouse of Horror 12. They're all enjoyable, but I think that the thing about 12 is that, especially the last one was WizKids, which was clearly a Harry Potter takeoff, is there was a stretch kind of starting right around with 12 for like a few seasons where I was really disappointed in a lot of Treehouse of Horror because they weren't anything scary. They were just parodies off of like something that was going on in the public zeitgeist at the time more often than not. And I think that kind of like I still liked them. I still thought were funny, but that was a stretch that I was just like, man, we need to get back to like parodying something funny, like something actually scary. So I think that's kind of why this one was the one that I liked the least. Just didn't flow as well. The jokes weren't quite as much, and it really hit with that last WizKids ones because I'm like, oh, this is just a Harry Potter parody, and that's it. So yeah, that for me, that was my least favorite, even though still enjoyable, still some funny moments, especially in Hex in the City.
Right on. I love just the one gag at the end of WizKids where the leprechaun randomly shows back up, just for no reason. That was great. Great little button. Corey K, what is your least favorite of these four?
I'm going to have to agree with Corey here. Treehouse of Horror 12 with Hex in the City, House of Wax, and WizKids. And the main reason why I think this is the worst is because of WizKids. People call it a Harry Potter parody. Like, Corey, you said that. I don't even think it's that good of a parody because it doesn't actually dive into enough of the Harry Potter world to actually make it funny. It sounds like somebody heard a few things about Harry Potter and then decided, oh, okay, I'm not going to read the book or watch a movie. I'm just going to write a parody about it now. Okay, here's what's Harry Potter related. Lord Monty Mort is, played by Mr. Burns as Lord Voldemort. The snake is played by Smithers, Lord Voldemort's snake. Najira, I don't know, I don't care.
Nagini.
Nagini, yeah.
Gesundheit. And then the kids go to a magical school. That's really it. Like Harry Potter himself makes an appearance. It's like, no, brimstone. And I think I don't know, I think it's just very, very weak because they wanted to do a Harry Potter parody, but they didn't want to actually commit to understanding the source material. And it's probably the worst segment that I've seen so far in this series that we've done. I hope that as we continue through this, nothing will be worse than this. Like I gave this a very low score after watching it, and I know I keep going on and on about it, but I will end on a positive note. Hex in the City does have some funny moments, like we talked about. House of Wax even made like my list, but WizKids brings this down so low that I almost want to just watch just Hex in the City, House of Wax, and then just not watch the rest of the episode.
Yep.
It's fair.
All right, folks, now it's time for everybody's favorite segment.
Oh, the Untitled Ben Affleck segment?
That's right, Steve. It's As Played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
Now, for those who've never listened in, As Played by Ben Affleck
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
is when we choose one character from the top of our list to replace with Ben Affleck. Now, there are 3 eras of Ben Affleck that we have to choose from. So we choose a character to replace with Ben Affleck, what era, and why. First off, we have the Good Will Hunting era Ben Affleck, which is when he was the indie darling and just starting to get into action films. Next up, we have the Jiggly era Ben Affleck. This is the rom-com starting around the release of the Jiggly film. And finally, we have Batfleck era Ben Affleck, where he's older, more chiseled, and got that beautiful salt and pepper beard. Now, with that being said, Steve, who were you replacing with Ben Affleck? What era and why?
Yeah, I'm going to be replacing Kathy Lee Gifford with Gigli era Ben Affleck. Not going to change any lines. Want him acting and reacting exactly as Kathy Lee did, and I don't want it to be addressed or explained. Just think him freaking out and leaving the show, saying Dom DeLuise can interview himself would just be delightful coming from Ben Affleck. Corey, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck, what era, and why?
So my number one was Starship Poopers, and I would replace Jerry Springer with Batfleck era Ben Affleck, but I would want him in the bat suit. So, because I just would want to hear him do like Jerry Springer's final thought in the bat suit with the gravelly voice, I think would be absolutely hysterical. And just actually watching like him getting attacked by the baby would be funny too. So that's who I'm going to choose for mine.
Corey K, who are you replacing with Ben Affleck, what era, and why?
So my number one was the same as Steve's, which was Terror of Tiny Toon. And I think with that one, I think it would just be funny if we replaced Poochie with Good Will Hunting era Ben Affleck. I just think it would be really funny, just like a Boston Southie Ben Affleck riding a skateboard dressed like Poochie, who then just gets like completely eliminated. So it's almost like you're saying like this is an alternate universe where alternate Poochies could exist, and those can't live either. Like, you can even call him, like, Hoochie, the dog, Poochie's brother, or something ridiculous like that. I mostly am choosing this because there's really not a lot of characters in here that you can replace, and Steve, you kind of took the best one, so I hate you for that.
Is it hate or is it the other thing?
It's many things, Steve. And folks, it's going to wrap up As Played by Ben Affleck.
Untitled Ben Affleck segment.
And of course, it's going to finally wrap up our episode here today on the top 5 segments of The Simpsons Treehouse of Horrors 9 through 12. We've done it.
We did it.
We got there.
Oh, God, we did it all together. We did it as a team. Of course, as always, Corey of the Movie Chumps podcast, thank you so much for coming on here today and being a guest and joining us in this ongoing journey.
Thank you so much. I look forward to doing this every year. I can't wait to come back and do it hopefully again next year.
Yeah, next year is we'll be doing 13 as starting off. And the 13th, if I remember correctly, is where they actually started calling it the Treehouse of Horror. Because before that, it's just the Simpsons Halloween special.
I was going to ask like when they actually started to do that because and I think that the next four from next year includes one of my favorite segments ever, which is the Island of Dr. Moreau episode that they did, which I loved that one. Excellent parody.
Spoiler alert for next year.
Sometimes we reveal spoilers on this pod, but it's all right with me. So again, folks, keep in mind, if you do want to hear more of Corey's thoughts, go ahead and check him out at Movie Chumps, which is a podcast you can find on Spotify, Spreaker, and probably wherever else you can get your podcasts from.
Movie jumps!
But, Steve, we got to continue this spooky month, right?
Oh, we sure do.
Oh my God. So what are we doing next time? Come on, lay it on me.
We are going to be visiting my personal favorite horror movie of all time, Ridley Scott's Alien. It is going to be creepy. It's going to be a slow burn. It's going to be a good time.
That's awesome. One of the great things I've been noticing as a trend these last couple years is people re-releasing classic films into the theaters. And I thankfully this year got to see Alien in the theaters for the first time with my friend John. So that was an awesome experience. One of my favorites. So it was great to see it in the theater.
Hell yeah.
It's the one good thing about Hollywood struggling is now we get to actually experience these films as they were supposed to be, sitting in a sticky seat, paying way too much for popcorn.
As the good Lord intended.
Oh boy. Well, you know what? No one can hear you scream in this podcast. So until then, I've been Corey.
I'm usually Steve.
Bye.
Bye! What do you think being a vampire would do to someone's refractory period? Eventually they replaced her with an actual Jamaican man. As the good Lord intended. Shout out to little Toby out there, driving me to drink.